Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Hope Church. I want to begin by sharing something interesting. Did you know that Christians believe something about prayer? Christians believe that if we pray, God will listen to us and answer all of our prayers. Now, if we overlay with that the fact that we live in America, the most prosperous nation in history, why would someone who believes in God ever feel anxious about what they have? Today, I'm going to show you that it has everything to do with how you pray. Well, we are in part 3 of our series, Grown Up Prayers, and for many of us, if we're honest, our prayers are kind of childish. We never learned how to pray beyond, dear God, help me, bless me, give me, protect me. That's kind of what we assumed, or that's what was modeled for us as children, and we never matured out of that. We never grew out of that, and in our defense, very few people ever had anyone show them or teach them or model what mature grown-up prayers look like. But while it's not your fault, it is your responsibility to learn how to mature in your prayers, how to pray grown-up prayers. And the good news is that one time, Jesus' own disciples asked him, would you teach us how to pray? Because we know that when we hear you pray, Jesus, we don't think we're doing it right. So Jesus taught them how to pray grown-up prayers, and today we call it the Lord's Prayer. And when Jesus taught them, he said, this is how you pray, okay? He didn't say, this is what you pray. He didn't say, recite these words. He said, when you pray, this is how you are to pray. And he gave us a template. He gave us a framework. He gave us an outline to work through, to pray through, to meditate through, to think through. For example, when we begin, Our Father in Heaven, he didn't say that so we would okay, now I'm praying. I'm in prayer mode. No. Stay there for a while. I'm praying to our Father. I am a child of God because Jesus took my place. Jesus paid for my sins. So now the basis for prayer is not, okay, shoot, I blew it. God's not going to answer my prayer. No, you can approach him as a toddler approaches her dad and ask for anything because he is your Father, and not just yours. He's our Father. You're not alone in this. You have a family through the blood of Jesus. And together, the church everywhere around the world comes together to worship God as Father. And so Jesus said, I want you to approach prayer this way. So this is our framework. This is our template for prayer. Now, in the last 2 weeks, really what we talked about was the approach. And if you missed the last 2 weeks, I think you owe it to yourself to go online and watch the last couple of messages, because it totally changes the way that most of us intuitively approach prayer, but we've got to keep moving forward today because we are finally at the part of prayer that you guys are going to get excited about. Today, Jesus shows us this is the part where you get to ask God for stuff. And we're like, yes, that's why I'm here. I need stuff and I need God to do it for me. So finally, we get to the part where Jesus says, okay, you're ready to ask God for stuff? And we're like, yes, I'm ready. But just to warn you up front, I'm going to show you what Jesus taught us about asking God for stuff. And when I read it, it might leave you feeling a little bit, well, I'll let you decide how it leaves you feeling. Matthew chapter 6. Give us today our daily bread. All right, what's the next line? That is the next line. That's all there is. When you go to God with your request, with your wish list, Jesus said, here's what you ask God for. Give us today our daily bread. God, just for today, I am depending on you for everything I need to live to the end of today. And if you answer that prayer, and if I wake up tomorrow morning, then tomorrow morning I will pray, God, today, give me this day whatever I need so that I have the energy and capacity to do your will, to do good, to love you, to love my neighbor in my sphere here, in this life that you've given me. Dear God, I'm completely and totally dependent on you for what I need today. Now, very few of us have ever prayed that prayer and meant it. Maybe there was a time or two where you're like, okay, I might not live, and you prayed because you knew suddenly your survival to the end of the day was depending on God. But very few of us, if any of us, have prayed this as a lifestyle, a daily prayer of dependence, complete and utter dependence on our Father in heaven. And it's understandable why we wouldn't. First of all, we're America. We are sea to shining sea, baby. In fact, if we did a global reset on territory and you got first pick, which territory in the world do you want for your country? After Bahamas, you would pick America, okay? Because we are a nation that is ridiculously wealthy with natural resources and food abundance, and we got Alaska thrown in for less than 2 cents an acre. What kind of a deal is that? We are the world's leading exporter of food. We have so much daily bread in America, we have to find other countries to buy it from us because we can't possibly eat all of our daily bread. And when someone hits hard times, we have safety nets, we have welfare, we have unemployment, we have Social Security, we have charities that help people out when they hit a tough time. That's what we do in America. We have all kinds of daily bread. We have so much daily bread that grocery stores have to throw out their food because it expires before there are enough people to buy it. They will donate it to local food pantries because can't sell it anymore. It's too close to the expiration date. We are overwhelmed with daily bread in our country. Now, we're in a season right now where inflation is spiraling and people are anxious, and we're all feeling the pinch of that. But while we do that, I imagine that there are people in other parts of the world, like Mozambique or the Congo or Somalia, who say, wow, that's rough over there for you guys. Oh, by the way, 90% of us don't have electricity or sanitary water, and we are growing our own food so we don't die. But sorry you have to eat out less often, America. Whew, that's tough. See, we don't know as Americans, this is just not our experience, to know what it means to truly feel the urgency of being completely dependent on God for everything that we need. And not only do we not know what that feels like, we don't want to pray this way, do we? I mean, I don't want to pray for daily bread. You know what I want to pray for? Give us today our daily new car smell, okay? That's what I want. Give me today daily 401k growth, God. That's what I want to pray for. Now, I'm not saying we do not have a poverty problem in this nation. That is real. All of us have been through tough times, and maybe you are in a very tough financial situation right now. Totally understand that. I'm saying that in general, there has never been a people or a culture who had a hard time praying this and meaning it than we do here in the 21st century US of A. But Jesus is teaching us something that is so contrary to the culture we live in. And I'm going to just show you what Jesus taught us to pray, and then I'm going to spend the rest of our time unpacking it to try and convince you, no, this is really a wise, mature, grown-up way to pray that will actually get you what you're looking for, but it's so counterintuitive we don't see it. So here's the big idea. Here's everything we're going to talk about today. Jesus is teaching us this. When it comes to prayer, pray for your needs, not your greeds. Pray for your needs, not your greeds. Let's all say this together out loud on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Pray for your needs, not your greeds. Okay, you did not sound excited. You said that with all of the energy of someone waiting in line at the DMV, okay? So if you're online, write in the chat, pray for your needs, not your greeds, and put some fire emojis or something behind it so we know you mean it. Everyone in the room, let's say this one more time with a little bit of energy. 1, 2, 3. Pray for your needs, not your greeds. That's what we're going to pray for. Now, why would Jesus tell us to pray for our needs and not our greeds in prayer? Well, Jesus understood something about greed. Now, by the way, as soon as I say the word greed, I totally understand what happens. What happens in the audience, what happens at home is you say, oh no, the offering plate's coming around again. I've seen this trick before. I know how this works. He's going to tell us to give to the church. Now, just so you know, not where we're going today at all. The doors are still unlocked. You don't have to give anything. I'm not going to ask you to give to the church. This is about prayer. You should, okay? So you should think about it. The United Way has no problem asking you for money, do they? And when the United Way asks you for money, you don't say, oh, United Way is just after my money. No, you say, well, yeah, that's how they get stuff done. They do stuff with healthcare, with education. Of course they ask me for my money. That's how they get stuff done. In the church, we're not the United Way. We're just working on stuff like, I don't know, people's eternal destinations, heaven and hell, where people spend eternity forever. So, no. Yes, money's how we get things done. You should support a local church, but not today you shouldn't. That's not what we're talking about. We are talking about something in prayer that if we don't get right, it will leave a lack of peace in our hearts. See, Jesus understood something about greed in our hearts. It is a completely corrosive emotion. Now, to prove it to you, think of someone you know. Don't say any names. Do not write it in the chat, and no elbows. Think of someone you know who you would look at and say, that person is greedy. Think of someone you know that you would say, that person is greedy. Do you enjoy their company? Do you want to emulate that person? Do you want your kids to grow up and be a person like that person? Say, no, of course not. We see the corruption that greed brings into our hearts and it spills out into our lives. That would not be a good or honorable or kind person that we want to be like or be around or our kids to grow up and be like. Now, it's easy to recognize greed in other people. It is so difficult to see greed within our own lives. See, if you're feeling angry, you know you're feeling angry. If you're feeling lonely, you know you're feeling lonely. If you're feeling greedy, other people know you are, but you probably don't. Now, why is that? Now, what you might not know is that it has everything to do with a molecule in your brain. The master motivator molecule in your brain that is called dopamine. Dopamine is experienced as a feeling to us. See, when you see a beautiful view, or eat a delicious meal, or see someone you love, it's a release of dopamine in the brain, and it's a pleasure molecule. We feel really good when we feel dopamine in our brains. Now, dopamine is a chemical that's released in the brain when we have an anticipation of a reward, or a payday, or an acquisition. We get to gain something. This is sometimes why planning a vacation is more fun than going on the vacation itself. That's dopamine at work. You're daydreaming, you're planning, you're imagining, and you feel really good while you're doing that. That's dopamine. Now, dopamine is also the same chemical that can cause addictive behaviors. Lab rats, when they're hooked up to, those little brain things, those little, ping pong helmets with all the wires coming out of it, when they hit the lever and it triggers a dopamine release in their brain, they will hit that lever over and over and over and over again. Illegal drugs. Some illegal drugs will flood your brain with dopamine, which creates the high, an incredible feeling of pleasure. But dopamine, of course, wears out. And we like the feeling, so as human beings, we seek out experiences that give us another hit of dopamine, whether it's more adventures or more fine dining or more drugs. Dopamine, by the way, is also the chemical that's released when you just get that little hit on your phone, when it vibrates, when it dings, when you go through social media and you got a like. Because dopamine can unfortunately create addictive behaviors in us as well. Because whatever it is, it fades away. We want it again. We repeat the activity that gave us the dopamine high to begin with, but then it fades, and so we repeat it, and now we're in a dopamine reward loop, which is addictive. Now, the reason why addicts become addicts, and the reason why people become greedy, is often because we want the dopamine rush because we have an underlying emotional deficiency. See, we're carrying around anxiety, or guilt, or fear. And the dopamine temporarily makes us feel really good. It masks the underlying emotional deficiency. So rather than doing the deep work of figuring out, why am I feeling this way, and how can God help me through this, we take the easy way of just another dopamine hit. So when it comes to greed, there's something out there, something you're anticipating, the reward, the acquisition, the possession, the money, whatever it is, and that motivates us to go out and pursue it and get it. Now, that's not a bad thing, but it motivates us, and when we acquire it, it's another hit of dopamine, but then whatever it is, it fades. And so we repeat the cycle. Oh, there's another thing I could get. There's another thing I could have. There's another thing I could buy. There's another raise I could pursue. And it motivates us and we go out and get it. And then we get it and there's another dopamine hit and then it fades. And it repeats over and over and over again. Now, if we were to approach an addict, there's an addict in your life, and you said, it's time to get off the drugs, it's time to get off the alcohol, you might have a very strong emotional reaction because there's an addiction, a dependency on the substance to feel good, to cope, to survive. So when Jesus says, pray for your needs, not your greeds, if there's a strong adverse emotional reaction you're feeling, maybe what that's revealing is a little bit of a greed addiction. Well, I wanted to give you an assessment so you could help figure out if this is something in your life or not. And you don't have to tell anyone your answer to this assessment, but just when it comes to our prayers, we're not talking about spending or anything like that. Just when it comes to prayer, because that's the context for this series, when you pray, here's my question. If God answered all your prayers, would you be a godlier person? If every single prayer you prayed was answered the way that you wanted God to answer it, would you be a kinder person? A more loving person? A person who is more generous and thoughtful? Would more people be in heaven? Would more people be saved? Would more people know and see the love of God in the world? Or would you mostly just have a life that's easier for you? So your answer to this question tells you about what it is that's motivating you in your life. Now that we've gone this far, let's go one more layer down. When you ask God for stuff, what is it that you're actually after? When you want the thing, when you want the raise, when you want things to be easier in your life, what is it that you're actually after? It's one of three things. You are after security, or you are after significance, or you are after satisfaction. See, we want the stuff because we think the stuff will give us security, significance, or satisfaction. Yet we've lived long enough to know that it doesn't last, it wears out. What Jesus is teaching us, and this is the brilliance of this prayer, what Jesus is teaching us is this. What if, instead of looking to the blessings God gives for security, significance, and satisfaction, what if we looked to God Himself, the Creator, for our security, the Redeemer for our satisfaction, and for our significance, to know that God loves you? Once upon a time, there was a little girl, and her parents took her to McDonald's, and she asked them if she could get a Happy Meal. And the parents said, "No, sweetheart, please just order something off the value menu. That'll be fine." And she said, but Mom, Dad, you don't understand. It comes with a toy. And the parents said, "Sweetheart, we know. The toy will break before we even leave the parking lot. Please just order something off the value menu." But the little girl was persistent, and she said, "Mom, Dad, I don't think you understand. It's a Happy Meal, and I want to be happy. And if you buy me the Happy Meal, I will never ask you for anything again for the rest of my life." So the parents had a little mini conference and they talked it over, and they decided that seems like a pretty good deal. So they bought her the Happy Meal. And it worked. The little girl was happy. And she grew up with grace and poise. And it's true that she had hardships in her adult life, but she died at the age of 95, surrounded by her family, always grateful for that Happy Meal her parents bought her when she was a little child. The end. Now, we think that eventually an exceptionally bright child would come along and say, you know what, I'm not falling for it. The toy does break right away. It doesn't make me happy for very long. Or could it be that as we get older, our Happy Meals just become more expensive? If God answered all your prayers, would you move from temporary point of happiness to happiness, or would you become a godlier person? So what Jesus is teaching us is absolutely what's good for us. To be mature people, to be complete people, to be resilient people who can handle the realities and complexities of this broken world. So how do we get to the place where not just intellectually, but emotionally, spiritually, we are excited to pray the way that Jesus taught us, that we are excited to pray, Jesus, I am just depending on you today for what I need today. How do we get to that place? Well, that's what I want to spend the balance of our time showing you. We're going to look at a few different verses from different spots in the Bible that share just incredibly insightful wisdom on all of this, on our greed and on our dependence on God for everything. First verse we're going to look at is from the book of Proverbs. What you might not know is that when Jesus taught his disciples to pray for daily bread, he was referencing something from the Hebrew scriptures that we might not be aware of, but they were absolutely aware of it. Here's what he was referencing in Proverbs chapter 30, a brilliant prayer. 2 things I ask of you, Lord. Do not refuse me before I die. In other words, I'm going to pray this prayer until my dying day. I'm going to pray this prayer until my last breath. That's how big these 2 prayers are for the author here. Number 1, keep falsehood and lies far from me. God, I don't want any deceit in my heart or on my lips. I want to be a person of integrity. I don't deceive myself and I don't deceive others. And the reason why he starts here has to do with his second prayer. Give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread. Give me neither poverty nor riches, only. All I want is my daily bread. Why? Otherwise, I may have too much and disown you and say, who is the Lord? Or I may become poor and steal, and so dishonor the name of my God. God, do you know why I want daily bread? It's because if I don't get daily bread and I become poor, I might be tempted to steal. And if I steal, I will dishonor you. And I don't want to dishonor you. But I don't want riches either, God. Do you know why? Because wealth has an ability to create a mirage in our lives. In fact, earlier in the book of Proverbs, it talks about the mirage of wealth. It says, the wealth of the rich is their fortified city. So in ancient times, the way you had security, you got security from your walled city. Inside the walled city, you were secure. No walled city, no security. Well, Solomon here says the wealth of the rich is their fortified city. What makes the rich think they are secure? Their wealth. What's the word? Come on, what's the word? They imagine it. They imagine that their wealth is a wall too high to scale. If I have enough wealth, I will be secure. No one can scale these walls. I will be okay. Now, how many of you, like me, have lived long enough to know that wealth it's a little slippery to hang on to at times. Has anybody else lived long enough to learn that, or just me? Okay, 3 of us in the room. All right. It's something that if you think it's going to give you security due to no fault of your own, it can sprout wings and fly away. Isn't that true? Right? The medical bill comes along, tragedy happens, the economy blows up, whatever it is, you live long enough, you will live through that. But there's something about wealth that makes people who have it imagine that it is a safe haven for them, even though it isn't. So the Proverbs writer says, hey, God, give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread. So I don't want to curse you or dishonor you, and I don't want to put my security anywhere else but in you and in you alone. All right, so Paul the Apostle in the New Testament tells us a little bit about how to get to this place. He says in 1 Timothy chapter 6, but godliness with contentment is great gain. Now, when we think of great gain, we think of bigger house, we think of raise, we think of more money, but Paul the Apostle writes, no. If you want great gain, if you really want a fat bottom line, it's godliness with contentment. Godliness means I'm becoming more and more like God. I'm becoming more and more like my Father in heaven with His love, His patience, His joy filling my life. With contentment. Contentment means, yeah, I know there's a bigger one. Yep, I know there's a shinier one. Yep, I know there's a newer one, but I'm fine. I am content with what I have. Paul says if you can take godliness with contentment, you will be so far ahead of anybody else. And here's the reason why. For we brought nothing into the world. What did you bring with you? Fistful and nothing. You don't even have clothes on. Embarrassing. And we can take nothing out of it. What do you take with you? Nothing. Here's what this means. You are born and die with the same thing. Nothing, except maybe they put a nice dress or suit on you in the casket. That's about it. You are born and you die with nothing. That's why he can say, but if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. To which you say and to which I say, no, I won't. I don't know if I will be content with that. But his argument is pretty rational. If you start with nothing and you end with nothing, if you think great gain is more wealth, at the end of your life, you will have nothing to show for your life. If you think great gain is more and better and easy and comfortable, when you get to the end of your life and you stand before God and tell God what you did with your life, you will have nothing to show for your life. That's why he says, no. If you want something to show for your life, if you want great gain, be a godly person who loves God and loves your neighbor and serves them well, and be content with what you have, and you'll have a flourishing, healthy inner life. So that's the first reason why. The second reason why we can pray only for our needs, not our greeds, has to do with where this prayer falls into the Lord's Prayer, okay? Quick review. This is not the first thing we have in the Lord's Prayer. This is what we've covered. Jesus said, this then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, that's the basis for our prayer. And then before you get to your requests, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Quick review of what this means. Hallowed be your name means worship. God, I'm going to spend some time acknowledging how great and awesome and amazing you are, and I know exactly who I am talking to, the one whom the angels are right now praising in heaven, and I'm going to join them. I'm going to worship you, and then your kingdom come. Your kingdom come. I want more people to be children of God. I want your values to grow more deeply within me so I have your love. And Jesus, I want you to come back and bring heaven down to earth because that's what we're looking forward to. This is a prayer of hope, of anticipation, of expectancy. Jesus, I know how this ends and it ends really good and I'm looking forward to that. You spend some time with hope and then your will be done. Struggle with that until you can say, God, however you choose to answer my prayers today, I accept your will and I trust you because you are good. And only after you worship and hope and struggle, then at that point, Jesus says, now you can ask for your needs because you have taken the time to put everything in your life in its proper context. the context of sovereign God who is leading this to a specific destination, who would answer all of your prayers the exact same way you would pray them if you could see everything that God sees. Now, if God is that good, and if God is leading us to such a good destination, say, God, I just need you to provide. And I trust you for the very next breath I breathe. Now, so the first way to pray this prayer sincerely is to remember we brought nothing in, we take nothing out. If we make great gain anything but a greater dependence on God, we lose. Second, remember where it comes in the Lord's Prayer. It's only in the context of worship and hope and struggle. But there's a third way to pray. Give us this day our daily bread. And it's to see the greater depth that Jesus is inviting us to pray. One time in John chapter 6, Jesus told us this about daily bread. He said, "For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." "Sir," they said, "always give us this bread." Then Jesus declared, "I am the bread of life. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." When you take your desires for significance and security and satisfaction and you take them directly to Jesus himself, that is the only bread that will truly meet those needs you have for security, satisfaction, and significance. And it gives us the perspective to see that this life I have is not the only life I have. This wealth I have is not the only wealth I have. This time I have is not the only time I have, because Jesus will fill us with everything good for all of eternity. And what he's inviting us to ask for is not just physical bread, but that we would lean into him, our source of every good thing. This is why David could begin his most famous psalm this way: "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing." Listen, if you have food to eat and Jesus, do you know what you lack? If you have clothes to wear and shelter over your head and you have Jesus, do you know what you lack? Not a thing. You have the love of the Creator. You have the presence of the divine. You have the indwelling of God's own Holy Spirit, who empowers us to do good and godly things with our lives. We have a future in heaven, a treasure waiting for us there that cannot rust or be stolen or fade away. We lack nothing. Nothing. So this week, I want to challenge you guys. I want to challenge you to be very conscious of the way that you ask God for blessings. So here's what I want you to do this week. I want you to pray for your daily needs, not your daily greeds. And I'm going to put them in two categories. Number one, for physical life. Okay, whatever you want to pray for this week, limit it to, God, I'm depending on you today. I am depending on your providence. I'm depending on your goodness. I'm depending on your provision for what I need today. And second, pray for your daily needs for true flourishing, for Jesus, the bread of life, a greater dependence on him, trust in him, hope in him, and seeing the world as he sees it. Because if you have him, your inner life can flourish with peace and with godliness. So this week, would you decide, I'm going to pray the way that Jesus taught us to pray? And you will pray only for your daily needs, for life and for true flourishing. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, today I ask that you will give us neither poverty nor riches, but that you will give us our daily bread. Open our eyes to see that we are genuinely dependent on you for every breath, for every bite, for every day of life that we have, just as we are dependent on you for eternal life. Jesus, we thank you that you are the bread that came down from heaven, that you truly meet all of our needs on earth and in heaven. So give us the desire and courage to trust you and to pray. Give us today our daily bread. We pray this in your name. Amen.